Hey everybody, welcome to my first video, and today we are going to go into the song that you're about to hear. Okay, so here we are. We are in the session for the song that you just heard. That is going to be the song that you hear play through on the beginning of most of my videos. I just wanted to do a quick walkthrough of what is going on in this session here, and just to give you an idea. I didn't mean to do that. Oops. Let's load up let's get it all visible so we can see it. So obviously I have it already bounced down and printed. So, and you heard what it sounded like just before. So I obviously got some drums. I got some bass tracks here, some guitar, some rhythm, little effects, some leads that I augmented a little bit with the filter gate, and then some keys, some bass drops and cymbal swells and some reverse snares, pianos, chords, leads, staccato strings, sustained strings. Really quick while we're on this, I did this here, the separate string tracks and piano tracks. It's not that I couldn't have done it on the same track. I just wanted more control, because these are sustained chords, and then this here is these are staccato strings, so the bam 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 bam, that, and the piano chords are pretty self-explanatory. And this melody, this piano melody right here, is actually kind of like the lead vocal in this. So I wanted it on a separate track from this, so I had a bit more control over the volume and how I treated it. Anyways. Yeah, this is what the mix looks like. So some background on the drums. They were MIDI drums. I have the MIDI drum track right here, somewhere right there. It's right there. It's inactive right now. See, I use Kontakt. In that, this is the original drum sounds, so not the samples, are from the Get Good Drums Modern and Massive pack. I would have to double check what drums specifically, but I want to say that this kick is the Yamaha. I know the snare is the Yamaha and the toms are the Yamaha. The kick is the one that I'm kind of unsure of. I didn't really need the samples, but I just wanted a bit more punch. So to go over the samples, the kick sample is from the Drumforge Dave Otero pack. It's the Wolf kick, blended in with a drum sample that I wish I could say I custom made, but I didn't. It's one of Jordan Valeriot's kick samples. I believe it's the Glass kick. The snare sample is just the Luke Holland Taylor Larson main snare from the Drumforge pack. And then this snare bomb is a room sound that I just kind of over-processed and compressed to high hell out of. This is the Far Room Sound sample for the Yamaha custom snare in the Modern and Massive pack, and I just have it there. The tom samples is something new for me. I usually don't do tom samples, but I wanted just a little bit more punch out of these toms, and these tom samples really did the trick. They're also a Jordan Valerian deal. You'll see that I don't have a hi-hat track. Normally I would, but I don't have a hi-hat written in this song at all. And then, mono, near room, and far rooms. A lot of the room sound is actually coming out of this mono room because of the way that I treated it. Sounds really, really cool. We'll dive into that in a second. So I have a bass DI, and these other two tracks were derived from this bass DI. So I have a Dark Glass distortion bass right here. This is handling a lot of the heavy lifting in the mids, and then a clank, which I use the JST Bass Forge Hellraiser plugin for, just to add a little bit of clank. The rhythm guitars here, they are mono tracks. I just, for the sake of treating it the same way, I put it on a stereo track and readjusted the bounds in, because I don't typically like a completely panned rhythm guitar. And this is the Archetype Nolly plugin right there. And I believe it was the Blood Eagle preset, and I tweaked with it just a little bit, just for taste. The guitar was a Schecter Demon 6, I want to say, with a Duncan Design pickups, which are active pickups. So I needed to tweak it just a little bit. This is also done with these effects guitars. Each one is an individual take, just bounced down to stereo and just treated the same way. Also Archetype Nolly. This is where it gets a little different. These leads here, which I will zoom in so you can see. I took the DI and I kind of chopped it a little bit so I could get that kind of pulsating feeling. One is the actual lead, which is this one guitar lead, and then this one's a harmony. It's dropped a fourth down, I want to say. Yeah, a fourth. And panned out. This was done with the JST Ben Bruce plugin. And then the strings were done through the Expand Stock Pro Tools plugin. Piano was through Addictive Keys. The bass drop was custom made for this session by me using the Sub Destroyer plugin from JST, and then the cymbal swells and reverse snares are pre-made that I loaded in. So to dive into this a little bit, just to give you a little preview of everything individualized, here is what the drums sound like. So really, really big sound. There's really not a whole lot going on the reverb, and in fact, the reverb wasn't even soloed for that on the snare, so you didn't even hear that. That's just kind of helping add some thickness, and it's mixed very, very low. This Bus 17, I sidechained over here to the far room on a gate. I didn't really feel the need to do that here, and technically I probably didn't really need to do any of that kind of stuff on these room tracks, because the Get Good Drums packs give you some hyper realism to how an actual session is recorded. So I do have some cymbal bleed, but mostly what's poking through on most of these, on pretty much all of these mics, except I guess it is still on the near room, is the snare. And that's just because I love a natural room snare. Not to say that the snare bomb doesn't sound good, but let me go ahead and mute the samples, ungroup my stuff, and I'll take off the snare bomb and the tom samples and then the kick samples so you can hear what it sounded like before the sample. So you get the idea. It sounds good, but it just wasn't quite punchy enough for me, so I figured I would augment the kick here, and this is after. Yes, Pro Tools, I know. So without, with. And it just adds a little bit more punch, and that's just what I was looking for. I do a little bit of weird stuff here. I'll probably make some videos about what's going on here in typical drum mixes of mine. This is just kind of an overview. So here we have the Taylor Larson Luke Holland main snare sample. It's just a one shot. It's turned down there, but it's really not doing a whole lot. So the snare. And then width. Just adds a little bit more snap. A little bit more more punch. And then the snare bomb, I'll go over this really quick. I use the stock Deverb plugin. This is pretty much how it opened up. I just backed off the mix and then turned the gain up so it wasn't getting completely washed out. And then I compressed it rather aggressively just so I could add some length to the tail of the reverb, just to give it this big sound. And by itself, it sounds something like this. And you might hear the parallel compression. No, okay. Just a nice, big, roomy bomb kind of sound. And you're hearing the piano right there with its echo. And then in the context of the whole kit, just really adds some explosiveness. The tom samples aren't really doing much. It's just adding a little bit of attack to these toms. Nothing super crazy. I have a tom group here so I can adjust all the volumes together, but I'll go ahead and mute the samples. And you're hearing a little bit of reverb because I put a reverb, the virtual, or Verb Suite Classics by Slate Digital on my toms right on the bus. I don't do a parallel bus to that, and I just adjust the mix knob to taste. So that's pretty much the drums. There is a little trick that I do for overheads, but because of the hyper realism that I get from using Modern and Massive and really any of GGD's products, I didn't really need to use it here. Maybe I'll go over that in a different video with live track drums. Not a whole lot of excitement going on here in the overheads though. It's just, I did have some kit in there, so I cut out the kit, little boost to add some shine here, and then there were just a couple little frequencies that I needed to notch out that were annoying. And then I did compress this quite aggressively because, well, they're programmed cymbals, so it's hard to get the realism in this, in my opinion, for my ears, to get them to sound real unless you compress it kind of hard, other than doing velocity stuff and getting super technical stuff. So mono room, this is where a lot of the character of the snare is coming from. See, I use the Devil Lock, easy to go overboard, just a couple filters and a little boost here in the mids, just to add a little bit more snap to the snare. Near room, pretty similar treatment as the mono room. I just filtered out, extra low end and the cymbals that I did have coming through, and it looks like I compressed pretty aggressively, but rather this is pretty typical for a close room like this for me. Yeah, not a whole lot going on. It's just to add some ambience to the whole kit, so doesn't sound super fake. Far room, as I mentioned before, this is treated very similarly to the near room. I left a little bit more high end in there. And then I did smash this, and it's really easy to go pretty far very quickly on the Devil Locks stuff by Sound Toys, and I love their stuff. Excuse me. But yeah, that right there is pretty squashed me, and then a little bit of a sidechain gate back to the snare. Just so I'm getting mostly that snare ambience in the far. But that's pretty much the drum mix. You heard it. Moving on to bass. I'm going to go ahead and make this mini and get it out of our way. So I did just talking about the bus really quick. I do all of my like actual EQ moves in here, and there wasn't really a whole lot that needed to be done. It was just volume balance. I added a little bit of the high end just so I could get a little bit more clank, and then there was just this ringing, annoying, high-pitched like whistle here at about 5K that I just notched out, and then it's just compression with JST bass bus glue. This Pro MB by FabFilter is sidechain to the kick, just so when the kick goes, it's not getting in the way. The low end of the bass is not getting in the way of the low end of the kick. Going back to the drum bus, it's JST bus glue drums, and then JST clip that I blended, and that's the mix is down a bit. It just adds, I don't know. I don't really know what it adds. I can't really describe it. It just sounds good. Grit, I guess, would be a good way to go about it. Go about describing it. Anyway, so I have the bass DI. I pulled this up and just pulled up the preset only bass because I just wanted to use the DI to augment the low end, and then I just filtered and then boosted. Really, really simple, and then limited it, just so I got it consistent under the kick. And this is Joel Wanasek's. It's the JST Joel Wanasek bus glue bass, and I love using that. And I use it on all of these. And then I have the Dark Glass bass, which sounds a little something like this on its own without any of the plugins. So really, really raunchy, very mid-heavy, and that's really all I wanted to use it for. So I filtered out a lot of the low end, a lot of the high end, and we're just getting this grit here, and there's nothing else being done to it, with the exception of limiting on the high end, and I want it a little bit above the kick so we can get some of that attack. And then the bass clank, and bring this back down. I had it at right there. And then the bass clank is the Bass Forge Hellraiser by JST, and it's similar. I do still have some of the mid information, but a lot of the mids are scooped out of this, and I just wanted this information that was here. So that's what the filters are there for. And then I just, again, limit it with the bus glue from Joel Wanasek, and then collectively it sounds so. It's a really, really solid bass tone, and that's with all of the processing there. The only thing it's not getting is the is the multi-band. So I'm going to go ahead and close that, or make them mini. Now we come to the rhythm guitars. Now I just recently got the Archetype Nolly plugin, and I wanted to use it for something, and I figured I'd try it on this. And this is what the rhythm tone, this is the Blood Eagle preset that I tweaked a little bit, just for my guitar, and this is kind of what it sounds like. And it's just chugs, and that's part of the reason why I tweaked it. Like, there wasn't really a need to do anything crazy on this song. It's just it's an intro song. It's kind of neat, So you'll notice here the first three plugins on all of these guitars are as follows. We have the JST Joel Wanasek bus glue guitars. I use this to limit my guitars not on the bus, because it has this chug snare feature, and it's really nice here on chugs because it helps tame some of those low mids that it can really build up. And then I've got FabFilter Pro Q2. I haven't gotten the 3 yet. One little 4K frequency that I always hear, it annoys the hell out of me, so goodbye. And then just a little bit more notching out of the low end. It's pretty much all treated like that. And then I do a second layer of limiting, but this is more of a compressor. I use the Waves Renaissance Axe, and it's not doing anything super crazy. This is just to help lock it into place. And it's pretty much the same processing here on the effects guitar, with the exception that the EQ is a bit more extreme, focused here in this high mid area with the tiny little boost to give it this radio type effect. And this was done with the radio preset. It wasn't radio enough for me. So then we have the leads. It's pretty much the same processing. These are a different amp, so it is filtered a little bit differently. Both of these leads were done with the JST Ben Bruce plugin, and these were just some, I guess I wouldn't really call them overtones, but they kind of are overtones that were overly ringing that I just kind of notched out. And I did the same thing here on this. These are octaves. These are octave guitars. So the guitar lead is A, which is the tuning of the song, and then the guitar harmony is E. Both of them are processed pretty much the same. The only difference is the EQ, and then I have a little bit of reverb just to add some space, and they're panned 75% to each side. And the guitars together, yeah, they sound kind of funny on their own, but you add the bass in there, and it really fills itself out. And then with the drums, you probably have noticed that there is some weird stuff happening volume-wise throughout the song. Here on some of the buses, for example, there, and then the kick has these little augments and stuff. I'll talk about that in just a second, but quickly down to all the keys. So let's talk about the easy stuff. These are just reverse snares that I loaded in. This here isn't really doing a whole lot. I'm just pushing it because the reverse snare wasn't cutting through the mix unless I turned it way the hell up. It happens every now and then. I just pushed it and then did a volume adjustment. Same thing on the cymbals. It's just volume adjustment and then, little fixes in the length. The bass drop I made custom using JST Sub Destroyer. What I do is put it on an aux, bust it out, and then print it here, and then do what I gotta do to get it in time. Bass drop is going from A to A. It's a fairly long bass drop. Normally I would have different length bass drops. I'm gonna make a video here soon about how I go about doing this process. So definitely check that out when it comes out. So I'm gonna go ahead and hide this. So let's talk about these strings. So we've got strings, and this is pretty much. I don't like doing a whole lot of processing to strings because of how raw they are, and I think the SSL plugin by Waves. This is the E channel, yeah, E channel, and I just go to the strings preset. I didn't do any tweaking. Well, I might have done a little tweaking on the compression, just a tiny little bit, but I didn't really do any tweaking because it just sounded good. It, like before, if I take, this is what it sounded like before. And after. You get the point. It's subtle, but it just helps warm up the strings. It just calms down a little bit of the harshness and a little bit of the extra rumble. And then I put the Valhalla Room reverb plugin and used the large hall, and then adjusted the decay and the mix just to add some ambience. I did the same thing here on the staccato strings. Just nothing different there. But together they sound like this. I do have a classical music background, just a little bit. I'm not afraid to admit that I made like Squidward and played the clarinet, but that's part of what inspires the strings. I do actually I do enjoy classical music. From every once in a while. I love listening to classical music because it shows us where music came from. And let's face it, metal and metalcore and rock share a lot of similarities with classical music, whether people want to admit it or realize it or whatever. Anyways, moving on, the piano, I have chords and melody. The melody kind of serves as what the vocals would be if I did decide to put vocals on this, but I'm obviously didn't feel the need to. Kind of simple. This is just the piano preset that comes right on the SSL channel. Didn't really do anything different other than adjust the compression and the output, just because it was coming in a bit hot. And then I have the Fab Filter here because there were just a couple of little things that were ringing funny. Again, this is the Addictive Keys studio piano, and it's super realistic, having actually recorded a studio piano that I think it was a Steinway. I think. I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to double check that. This right here is really accurate, and those were just two little frequencies that were just ringing that I didn't like. I have a little bit of Echo Boy on this just to add some space. I do have the tempo at 180 for this song. It's in halftime, so it's actually in 90, but it was easier for me to play to this, and it felt more natural. So that's what I went with. So instead of doing an eighth dot, dotted eighth, I did a dotted quarter note on each side, and this is just a dual echo. So it's just doing a dotted quarter on each side. It's very subtle. You can't really hear it. And then a trim just to help with the gain. It sounds something like this. super nice. It kind of sounds a little lo-fi, a little bit, just the feeling, not so much the sound, but I really, really like it. It's just kind of there to support the strings. I pretty much did the same stuff here on the melody. The only difference is the trim, and I did a ping pong delay with Soundtoys Echo Boy. Again, dotted quarter, so it's doing it every other side. On this one, a little bit more feedback, and this is what it sounds like. And then together. And that pretty much takes care of the keys. Now let's talk about my mix bus just for a second, and then we'll be done. So I take a less is more approach a lot of the time. Sometimes it's hard to tell that I do that. If I'm being honest, the things that get the majority of the processing and my time are drums and vocals, just because there's a lot to do with that. Most of my other processing and stuff will be on buses for like vocal delays or vocal throws, or if there's something I'm trying to not so much augment, but make really, really shine using a bus to mix it in. But really quick, talking about all my buses, I have cymbals, I have a toms, I do a snare, and I do a kick. This is just so I can glue together any samples. I treat my cymbals with a de-esser. Talk about that. This is the EO. I don't know how to say that, but it's from Slate Digital. Well, it's actually from them. Eosis. I don't know if I'm saying that right. A lot of people use this, and for vocals, I like using it here on the cymbals. Bass, pretty simple. I showed you that. Guitars is just the JST guitar bus glue, and then JST bus glue for keys. They're on keys, and those aren't really doing a whole lot. They're kind of blended in. I can talk about those in a different video. But really quick, I'd have the SSL comp. It's on the punch preset, and I just adjusted pretty much just the threshold and the makeup gain, and that's it. And then I've moved that into an EQ, just notching out some of these frequencies, and then a little bit of the low end. And then you see this, that's just some analog hum from the SSL E channel. I like the analog setting. And then just because I love the sound of tape, this isn't really doing anything, but this is the Slate virtual tape emulation. It's not doing anything. I just loaded this up and left it there. I didn't adjust the speed, no trickery with the tape or tape type or the bias or any of that. It's just there. It adds some warmth. And your final product is this. Now, this is just the mix. I did do a light... Oh. Sorry about that. I did do a little bit of limiting for mastering, but I'm pretty far from a true mastering engineer. I still have a lot to learn there. I still have a lot to learn about mixing, but yeah, this is the final product right here on the mix, which you heard at the beginning of the video. So I will talk a little bit more about this kind of stuff throughout the time of this channel. Go into about how I program drums, or how I mix my drums specifically, or bass and what prompted me to make those, and guitar and keys, and eventually some vocal stuff too. And I'll give you dive-ins to other sessions I'm working on, both personal stuff and for other people. But yeah, you heard this. So if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you're looking forward to more content, you want to see more stuff, go ahead and hit subscribe. If you want, hit the notification button, the little bell next to the subscribe thing, so you get notified when I post new stuff. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time.